And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're doing a little bit of a buy or a sell as we're looking at a mock trade that has Nikola Vucevic going over to the Warriors. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Bozelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are looking at a mock trade that is on Bleacher Report, and it's under this title. And it is talking about each team that is not in the NBA Finals, and that definitely fits where the Chicago Bulls are right now. And so, with that being said, within this mock trade, it suggests that the Chicago Bulls would send Nikola Vucevic over to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and then also the Chicago Bulls would send over their 2025 second round pick, which is pick number 45, and then also a 2028 second round pick. And so let me go ahead and throw that up on the screen so we can get a chance to see. And you can see that from a money standpoint in the trade generator, it works. And so let's go ahead and look at the first part of this, and just does it make sense for both teams? And so I think that number one, it does make sense. And let's start with the Golden State Warriors. And so the Golden State Warriors have been linked to the Chicago Bulls this last season, looking at Nikola Vucevic, and it definitely makes sense for Vooch to go over to the Golden State Warriors because they need some size. And he also is able to stretch the floor. Clearly, the Golden State Warriors went in a different direction last season. They ultimately went and got Jimmy Butler. But I do think that this is a trade that can definitely still get done. And I think that there's several ways in which Vooch could end up with the Golden State Warriors. And I think for them, they're going to try to maximize the window that they have with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler, and they're going to try to go all in. And I think that what they're doing here, if this were the deal that would happen, they also get the draft picks to go along with that. And so, yes, they get a little bit older, but they also get a chance to get younger quickly in the future, because you do have a 2025 second round pick, and who knows what that could turn into. And then also, you would have a 2028 second round pick. And so, a lot of people would say, well, they're second round picks, but those second round picks, they could turn into something, and it does give some draft capital over to the Golden State Warriors. And so that's something to where they could use that to pivot into some more youth, after Steph Curry and these guys go ahead and move on. And so for the Chicago Bulls, I think it makes sense for them because, number one, you start with Moses Moody. And I think that Moses Moody at 23 is a player that certainly would fit what the Chicago Bulls want to do. And because AK has talked about this before, that he wants to get, younger players that have had some experience and that, could maybe come over and then certainly could help this team speed up their timeline, because he doesn't want to go into a full rebuild. In fact, he said that before in his press conference. He doesn't like to use rebuild. He likes to use the word retool. And so Moses Moody would be a player that fits the build for the Chicago Bulls as far as a retool. And look, from the numbers standpoint, Moses Moody, even though the numbers weren't, just huge or anything like that, but it shows the player that grew a bit this summer. And you could see that maybe with an expanded role, Moses Moody might take off, because he had 9.8 points a game this last season, zero point 0.4 with the block shots, 0.8 in the steals, 2.5 with the rebounds, or 2.6, with the rebounds, 79.7% from the free throw line. And then he shot 37.4% from three, 43% from the field, or 43.3% from the field in 22.3 minutes. But more importantly, 34 starts, which was the most in his career. He played in 74 games. And Moses Moody has won an NBA championship with the Golden State Warriors. And so I like the fact that you're getting an NBA champion over. I like the fact that you're getting a younger player. I think defensively, what Moses Moody would bring to the Chicago Bulls is something that they need, especially on the perimeter defense. And so I think that he helps the team that way. I think he he is a player that goes in between being a 2 and a 3. I don't think that he's necessarily big enough to play the 4, even though Billy Donovan would probably throw him out there to play some 4s and everything else. But I do like the fact that he competes at a high level and things like that. But I think he would be a bit undersized to run out there in a 4, but definitely a 2 and a 3. I do like the fact that you pair him with Josh Giddey and then also to Coby White. I do think that there is a fit there. He is a guy that has shown that he could definitely be a player that could be a catch and shoot type of player. He looks like a player that could be, simply a 3-and-D type of player for you. But I do like the fact that you throw him into this offense that likes to play up tempo, the type of things that he would get in transition. I think at times he's shown that he can be a slasher. And so I think that this could be a real plus for the Chicago Bulls, especially if they want to move on from Patrick Williams. And then also, too, if they want to empty out, I think the guards that they have there, which I think would be something that the Bulls would probably explore. And so for that reason, I think it makes sense. Then next, when you look at Buddy Hield, I think that Buddy Hield actually helps the Chicago Bulls in this way. And so I think because he is coming off a solid playoff run and the fact that his numbers are solid and just what he does as a specialist in the NBA, which is knock down 3-point shots, this actually could play into the favor of the Chicago Bulls, because what happens now is that you look at that deal and you say, okay, the Bulls would be giving up picks to move Vooch. Yes, they're second-round picks. And yes, I have said that you want to value picks and the Bulls cannot afford to punt in the draft. But what you can do is you can flip, I think, Buddy Hield, and you can get, I think, a pick back from that. Or you could flip both of those players and get some picks, because we just talked about how Moses Moody really, as a younger player, I think he's really scratching the surface. He probably needs an expanded role. And then with Buddy Hield, his numbers: 11.1 points per game, 0.8 with the steals, 0.3 with the blocks, 1.6 with the assists, 3.2 in the rebounds. But more importantly, 37% from downtown, 41.7 from the field, 82.8% from the free throw line. He started in just 22 games this season, and he's on a 3-year, $9.2 million contract. And so that contract is under what Lonzo is getting paid, because remember, he's getting paid $10 million a year. And so I know that Lonzo's contract is shorter, but still at $9.2 million, with the way that Buddy Hield can shoot the ball, and he's shown that he can perform in a playoff series as well, I could see a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves wanting to come get him. I could see any of the teams really that were in the playoffs that would want to get Buddy Hield, because this is a guy that can be a floor spacer, and he might be the player that you're looking for that can perhaps push you over the top. And so I could see where the Bulls could maybe recoup a pick back from flipping Buddy Hield, especially if you have Kevin Huerter over here. You still have Lonzo, which I think that that's something that the Bulls would need to explore as far as moving off of that. But still, you could maybe get another team involved and you can move these players and get you a pick back. And so I think it makes sense here. And so lastly, I think for me, what it comes down to is I'm really buying this deal. And so I'm not going to sell on it. I think it is a deal that I'm buying into, because it gives the Bulls a sense of direction. And I think that that's what they want. They want to commit to a direction. They want to get younger. You do get younger. You don't necessarily have to flip Moses Moody. Like I said, I think he can definitely fit. But I do think that Buddy Hield and maybe some other pieces that you have can be flipped. And so you can use those in another deal and get some picks back. And so that helps the Bulls ultimately as they continue to do their rebuild / retool, whatever you want to call it, as they revamp this roster here. And so I think that that's why I'm buying this deal, because it does help you there. And you have the potential to collect some more assets here and get some other picks besides your own picks, which we've talked about this before with AK. It's great that he got his own picks back, but at some point, if you're going to follow a similar path to the Indiana Pacers, the OKC Thunder, you eventually are going to have to get some more assets. And this is a way in which he can. This is a way that he can get this team younger. This is a way that he can get rid of some of these contracts and players that just really are just not going to fit the long-term feel for this team. And so, another thing that is a possible option too with working with the Golden State Warriors, and we've talked about this before, is that maybe the Bulls would consider trying to jump in here and get Johnathan Kuminga. I think that that's very much on the table in a sign and trade situation, because the Golden State Warriors certainly wouldn't want to let him go for free, I think, in free agency. And so I think that that's something that the Bulls can possibly think about. And again, it does not necessarily have to be just between these two teams. And so I think that this is an interesting mock trade, but you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Are you buying this deal? Do you think that the Chicago Bulls could possibly take Buddy Hield or Moses Moody, flip that, and get some picks back in the deal? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.